for the Susan Taylor Podcast, where we discuss the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing. Author of Feeling Good Matters, Sexual Radiance, and the Vital Energy Program, Dr. Taylor imparts authentic knowledge and practical tools that inspire, educate, and empower us to be a healing force for positive change. So join us and take your life and our planet to the next level.
Hello and welcome to podcast 66, Silence is Golden, a look into meditation. Extensive research over the past few decades has provided a consensus that meditation is good for you. In today's episode, I'd like to speak about meditation and mental function, research on PTSD and meditation, and some diet tips to support your mental function. You know, when saying meditation is good for you, it's a bit like saying exercise is good for you. Just as there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different forms of exercise, there are claims that there are many hundreds and thousands of different ways that we can do meditation and that they're available to us. And I'm really not too sure when I hear this that there are different types of meditation. Is that really accurate? Maybe it's more accurate to say there are different practices that enable the practitioner to reach a meditative state, but not that there's a different meditation, because meditation is that state between thoughts, that space where there's total silence between thoughts, where we go beyond the mind field. We first attend to the mind and then go beyond it. So ultimately, meditation is really to attend to the mind and move beyond it, that space between thought. So it does require a precise, systematic approach of practices, and that's how people are going to make progress. You know, when I speak with people and I teach this, I don't say that I'm going to teach you meditation. I'm going to give you tools in which you can have your own practice and develop your own systematic approach to how you're going to reach it. Because meditation is an experience, a diving deep within the self, going into your own journey to find out who you are. That's basically what it is. Meditation, you know, may result in lasting changes in mental function. And there have been reported physical benefits to meditation, and the research does show that it lowers blood pressure with just 3 months of practice, while at the same time decreasing psychological stresses and increasing coping ability. So research does support that meditation is good for you. And we know that when we're in a meditative state, our mind becomes silent. The chatter becomes silent. That inner dialogue that creates anxiety or fear settles down. So silence is golden, you know, with meditation. And meditation is be still, being still and seeing that aspect of yourself. So research does support this, and the Center for Complementary and Integrative Medicine also supports the notion, and their definition is meditation acts as a form of mental exercise that can help regulate your attention and emotions while improving well-being. You know, it's been found previously that meditation prompts changes in the amygdala. You've heard me speak about that, and that's that region in the brain associated with processing emotion. The research suggests that these beneficial brain changes persist even after the meditation session is complete. And over time, we build up our bank account of meditation points, and that result will last longer and longer and create new grooves in the mind field, which then creates new processing in the brain. We go from reacting to responding. You know, if you know someone who's experienced PTSD, meditation we know can be beneficial. In fact, it's estimated that 18 veterans commit suicide every day due to these damaging effects of PTSD. And many others find that they never are able to quite recover from the emotional turmoil of war. You know, that example can be when there's been an estimation of approximately about 40% of homeless people are actually veterans. You know, people that just didn't get over that emotional aspect of the war, didn't have the support when they needed it coming back to really make that transition. A sizable number of U.S. combat troops are now taking either antidepressants or antipsychotic drugs, you know, desperate to really calm their nerves. You know, those nerves are strained by repeated and lengthy, combat tours. And there was a study done by Norwich University suggested a more natural approach to this, and that was using transcendental meditation, and I'll talk about that in a minute. There was also the David Lynch Foundation that did a project called the Operation Warrior Wellness Project, and that brought in transcendental meditation technique. And that brought it into quite a few veterans. I think it was about 10,000 veterans and their families. And the technique showed those people 50% reduction in symptoms were reported. And the improved quality of life was reported in just, I believe it was about 8 weeks. So it is essential to take steps to provide service to help heal those with emotional wounds, because left untended, the emotional trauma, like the experience of battle or any other trauma that we may have in our life, can lead to serious health problems down the road. Anything from depression to heart attacks, cancer, anxiety, any of these. So I mentioned transcendental meditation, and so I'd like to clarify what that is. Transcendental meditation is one of the most popular forms of meditation practiced by millions of people around the world. It's simple to perform. You can choose a mantra that has meaning for you, sit quietly with your eyes closed, and repeat that mantra for a period of about, they do 20 minutes twice a day. Focused awareness is the same concentration type of practice. We focus on our breath with the sound of so hum, which is the natural sound of the breath. And either way, these concentration practices are ideal to reach that restful, that silent, concentrated place of alertness and silence. Silence is amazing what it does to allowing everything to come forward and to really still the mind. And it enables you to let go of your negative thoughts and distractions, and they can just pass you by without upsetting the calm and balanced state that you are naturally in, before the thoughts start. People meditate for a wide range of reasons. It helps, as I said, lower anxiety, depression. It improves symptoms of stress-related disorders. It also reduces substance abuse while also having benefits of creativity, memory, and academic performance, even IQ, if you can believe that. But ultimately, I'd like to drive this home. Meditation is a path to accessing your core of being. It introduces you to you, your true self of who you are. When we become fully aware of who we are, we come to realize that we're not separate from a universal self. We're no different from each other. It's the only thing that's different are our habits. And that we're not only a mind-body complex, but a spiritual being that is the user of our mind and body. With that said, we must nourish our body and mind so that we won't deter ourselves off the meditation journey. It's not just all spiritual. Yes, of course, life is spiritual, but we have a mind and body that needs to be tended to, because that whole complex goes together. From the subtle to the more gross, and the gross being the body, the mind is subtle, and even more subtle than the mind is the spiritual self. Always remember that your mind and mood are intimately connected with your diet. So don't dismiss that part. Meditation's great, but we have to talk about diet here. There are dietary modifications and supplements that may result in really miraculous improvements overnight sometimes, but not in always the case. It depends how deficient you are. Once you start cleaning sugar out of your diet and GMO grains and all those kinds of things that aren't good for you as an individual, you can see something miraculous, but most likely it does take a little bit of time. But a proper foundation of sound diet and exercise regimen can be extremely difficult to achieve, but it's exceptional for mental health. And here are a few of the most interesting lifestyle factors that I have found that I wanted to address, especially when we're talking about anxiety, depression, PTSD. Those are the things that are very prevalent right now, so we should talk about them. The first is the animal-based omega-3 fats. We could say omega-3 fats, but a lot of the research was done on the animal-based omega-3 fats. And this is one of the most common nutritional deficiencies that can have a major impact on your mental health. We don't realize that, DHEA comprises 40% of the polyunsaturated fats in our brain. Our brain is mostly fat, as well as 50% of our neurons' plasma membranes. That's where the currents go, for our neurotransmission to take place. And without adequate levels, our brains and minds simply can't function as they're designed. DHA is almost exclusively derived from animal sources, as I mentioned, but there's one exception, marine algae derived DHA. And they don't suggest that because it does take a certain metabolic way to really convert that. It's more time consuming to convert that omega-3 into a DHA. It depends on your genetic type and your health, and if there's an enzyme there to do the job to convert it optimally. So people have said use krill oil, but I never really advocate that because the whales, that's their food. And I just, I've eaten enough food in this life and taken enough food from other sources that I really don't want to be taking the whales' food now. And they're doing that. They're manufacturing it when people want to take krill oil, but we are taking away the harvest for the whales when we do that. I had met Dr. Stoll at Harvard. He was a Harvard psychiatrist when I was working in psychiatry there, and quite an interesting scientist. And he wrote one of the he compiled a lot of the evidence, and he wrote one of the greatest books on the omega-3 fats for the treatment of depression. And that excellent book is The Omega-3 Connection, for those of you that might want to read more on it. And he's done some great work with that. Another vitamin deficiency that contributes to depression or any of these other kinds of mental problems that we have, which everyone has some sort of that, whether we're stressed or not, they're mental problems, is the vitamin D. Vitamin D levels should be checked because it affects about 1 in 4 people. And as we get older, it changes because of our gut acid balance. Doesn't convert and make that change for us. Another vitamin neurohormone that we can talk about is vitamin D, and I did a whole podcast on that, probably about 6 months ago. And there was one study that found that people with the lowest levels of vitamin D were 11 times more prone to be depressed than those with normal levels. And the best way to get your vitamin D, of course, is through regular year-round exposure to sunshine, or some say a safe tanning bed. I'm not sure how safe. But the next option is, which we do in the Northeast, is to supplement yourself. But if you're going to supplement yourself, you must do checks on that to make sure you're not going over or you're too far under. You have to do blood work for that. Not quite sure if a saliva test does it. You can check with your physician on that. Another important deficiency is exercise. There's so much data on that, pointing to the fact that exercise is one of the most potent treatments for depression. Unlike drugs, it's far more consistently effective than placebo when it's done properly. Another factor is sound sleep and proper rest. It's a critical issue. You can have the best diet and exercise program, but if you aren't sleeping well, your mental health can suffer. Sleep and depression are so intimately linked that a sleep disorder is actually part of the definition of the symptom complex that gives the label of depression. Well, I'd ask you, are you ready to give meditation a try? At the most basic level, meditation helps us take a deliberate break from our stream of thoughts that are constantly flowing in and out of our mind. Some people use it to promote spiritual growth and find that inner peace, while others use it for relaxation and stress reduction. Remember, it was originally done for spiritual practice because spiritual development is what we're all about. We're spirits inhabiting a body, not a body inhabiting a spirit. So keep that in mind. Most experienced meditators have spent decades, even lifetimes, perfecting this skill, this art. People say you can gain the benefit in short dosage, yes, at 20 minutes a day. But don't be fooled, again, by false illusion or false prophet, where people say you can gain the same benefit that someone's been doing and perfecting for lifetimes. It just doesn't work that way. The time we put in is the time we get out. And it doesn't mean we're all on the same path, but it's the effort. It's the sincere effort is what makes it really work. If you'd like to give meditation a try, as I've mentioned before, there are many classes and group sessions available. There's structured group settings, but you could also try it on your own. Simply sit quietly, Breathe rhythmically, diaphragmatic breathing, and focus. You can focus on your breath. That's where you'll get the most physiological benefit as well as the most spiritual benefit, meaning spirit. Spirare comes from breath. Our spirit comes in with breath. So breath is one of the most important vital tools. Other people say you can, use an image, of course, mantra. Remember, mantra is not self-created. Mantra should be given through a lineage, through someone who is a master at that and who's doing it for not financial reasons. Keep that in mind. Some people prefer to close their eyes, and that's preferable to block out visual stimulation, but other techniques where the eyes can stay open, but the gaze prevents any visual stimulation if you do the gaze correctly. If you find your mind starts to wander, as I've always said, direct it back to focusing on the point. I always use the base of the nostrils and watch the breath. And if you do that for 15 to 20 minutes twice a day, you will be on your way to just great findings within yourself, because meditation allows you, it introduces you to yourself. You're going to understand the workings of your own mind and body by being introduced and seeing how you operate. So working that can be very, very useful. The benefits far outweigh what research tells us. Give it a try and do your own inner research. Paying attention to your body and mind provides the best research. You become your own laboratory. You do the experiments because you're watching yourself. And that's really, life is the greatest experience. There are no mistakes. There are only experiences. And meditation gives you that experience. So as I always say, do your research. And that brings me to the end of this episode. Contact me at susantaylor.org if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. And thank you for listening. The Susan Taylor podcast comes out every week. Again, questions, comments, something you might want to hear, just let me know. And until next time, remain calm, consciously aware, living in the moment, and give meditation a try. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.